Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the channel. This is a special show. We typically don't go live on the weekends. Sometimes we'll do a re-upload here and there, but I wanted to get on here with you guys just because there's a lot going on. We had a doozy yesterday, and I wanted to talk about it on a spiritual level as well as an emotional level. This is a very emotional time for many of you. We're going to talk about that. We're going to break that down about how you're feeling, about how the media is handling all of this, and these threats being made to people like us who are glad that this happened. We're going to talk about Trump's reaction to all of this, which is shocking, just shocking. Falls in line with some of the thoughts that I had about where things could go in the next stages of his political life and what that would mean for us Christians. He seems to be slowly confirming our worst nightmares. Now, if you haven't heard, the Supreme Court basically has overturned abortion and given the rights back over to the states. So the days of federally sanctioned abortion, at least, are now over. But it raises some questions, doesn't it? What about all of that blood on our hands? Some estimates say 60 million unborn since 1973. And if we really want to be honest, we will realize that there are spiritual consequences to what America did for the last 49 years. We're going to look at the numbers behind all of this as well. The day that they chose to overturn it, which shockingly links back into iPad Goat 2. Now, my personal feeling is that the bloodshed is not over yet. Now, here's one of the announcements here. We're not going to play this. Fox News covered it, and was basically, the mood was very somber. You didn't see a lot of excitement from the right, which is just shocking to me. The right was not very excited about this, Trump included, and we'll get into his comments a little bit later in today's show. But my thoughts are, and what the Holy Spirit is telling me, is that because this is such a highly politicized issue, and because of the reactions that we have seen those on the left have to even the thought of making this illegal, and how they basically take full rights and control of that life in their womb, and they talk about it as if it's a piece of meat. And they make jokes about slaying the child in the womb. Now, all of this was taught by the fallen angels. This is right out of the book of Enoch. Slaying the child in the womb was taught by the fallen angels. And now we live in a country that up until a few hours ago, we sanctioned this fallen angel practice. So what's next? Well, because the states now have the rights to decide, I anticipate that these people on the left will be exercising their rights in those states in some of the most horrific and extreme ways possible. Just like we exercise our rights to carry and use a pop stick, they will exercise their state rights in states where it's permitted to slay the child in the womb. And I anticipate that they will do this in some of the most extreme ways just to protest and prove a point. Much like what happened with the Smack the Nations. And there were people running, literally running and standing in line because of the way the media politicized it. They were literally running and standing in line just to try to prove other people wrong, just to spite the other people who they felt were not wanting to keep our society safe. You guys, unfortunately, we're talking terminations at 8 and 9 months. Now, I'm being blunt with you here because once this begins to start happening, America will reach a very dark time. This will raise other questions as well as to what's happening. the change in the legislation here? What will happen to mothers who still want to follow through with these terminations in the states where it is illegal? Will they be guilty of murder in those states? All of these things will have to be dealt with in the coming weeks and months. Now, something is brewing because our federal government won't call a spade a spade. They won't name the people who are now threatening churches. They won't name them what they are, which is a domestic threat. They were so quick to name the domestic threat about people like us who simply have a different opinion about what happened in history. Oh, they were jumped right on the domestic threat label, right? But they won't apply that label to these people who are literally wanting to do violence against churches. They're actually coming out and saying it. And notice how they're handling this versus how they handled when the right was organizing. Completely different way they're handling it, right? Now, they admit that these people are organizing against us, but they won't make any arrests. They won't try to stop it. They haven't called in the National Guard like they did with the crapper hole and the eggnog the nation. Getting none of that, are we? Well, they didn't have National Guard at the crapper hole, but the eggnog the nation, which to me is dwarfed compared to this announcement that I never thought I would see in my lifetime. You don't see National Guard protecting churches. Now, what does the future hold? Well, I think what else the future holds is the continuation of the mass exodus into and out of conservative states. This will continue. This was something we realized back in 2017 that there would be an exodus. It started happening as we went through VidCo-19, as people were trying to get out of the way of tyranny. And then this will intensify in the coming weeks and months as the country is being more and more divided along the lines of morality, along the lines of belief systems. Now, what this means is shifting markets. You're going to have a lot of people that lived in the South that aren't just simply won't want to live there anymore because of the way. Now, I anticipate like even some, like even here in Arkansas, there are areas that are highly liberal. They're very, very liberal, but they're like little pockets. And because the people on the right are so cool and we're tolerant of, hey, if you want to live like that, you go live over there. Or if we're not going to bother you, right? The people here allow that to happen. They don't like kick those people out. They want to give the South and conservative areas a very bad name, but you're never going to see people with right-leaning beliefs telling people that they can't live there. Whereas if you look at the opposite scenario, you get in very liberal communities and they don't think twice about knocking someone's MAGA hat off or something. Now, I'm not a MAGA supporter, but I'm just giving you an example. They don't think twice about cussing somebody out. Or, just because of their beliefs or who they support. But the same is not true, vice versa. People on the right pretty much leave the people on the left alone to live as they want. Their consequences will come when Jesus returns. We're not here to make anyone believe the way we believe. We're only charged to basically tell the gospel. That is what we're charged to do, and to be the example that we want to see in the world. Be the change that we want to see in the world. That's what Jesus tells us to do. To not be hypocrites. And so I do expect, though, with this ruling that these liberal areas that are inside of these pockets of the conservative areas, they're going to implode. They're just not going to be able to help it. They're going to be like, we're out of here. What do you mean we can't? And good. But here's the bad part. We will no longer be able to reach those people Not that we were gaining a lot of ground anyway, but America will be divided. You'll have areas where people live that all pretty much believe the same thing. And unfortunately, those people will be lost in their sins and everything else that's coming. And as they join the echo chambers of reinforced bad behavior. And now that brings us to the end times, which the Bible says there will be certain plagues that come about the earth that some of us who are living holy and believe in the Lord simply will not suffer because of our beliefs. And now you're starting to see how this is going to happen as people begin to assemble together through like minds, right? So you're in a conservative area and everyone loves God. You're not going to suffer the same plagues as a highly, maybe liberal area who doesn't believe in God and who's sinning left and right at will. Now we're starting to see how all this could play out. Because before this, I was like, wait a minute. How's God going to do this? Because how are some people going to suffer plagues and others not? Like if we're all mixed together. But there's coming a time now, as we're now seeing, that things aren't going to be mixed together anymore. There are going to be hard lines drawn in the sand and in the borders. Now, could there be a civil war? Maybe. And maybe this is what all of this is about. Maybe this is what all this is about and why they conceded this decision. Maybe this is what they want, is a civil war. Now, nothing has really changed with this decision. And in fact, I anticipate more babies will die just in protest, as we said earlier in the show, because there's no longer any counterbalance of opinion, is there? And you're going to see carnage in the liberal states, people committing unspeakable horrors in the name of protest. And then you're going to see the other side, the conservative states, protecting life in the womb. Now, we already know that voting is fraud. So many of these states will continue to parade out liberal governors. And unfortunately, in some of the conservative states, we need to have our eyes peeled for any wolves in sheep's clothing. Now, I don't vote, but what happens is the voter base is deceived by these people. And they end up voting in these people who say they're Republican, but then they're Republicans in name only. And you can bet your bottom dollar that there will be undercover Democrats running as Republicans to try to, quote unquote, save these conservative states from this decision. You can bet your bottom dollar. And so we're going to have rhinos on the loose, Republicans in name only, who are skirting the line of what can and can't be done with the child in the womb. Now, these are just predictions based on information that we've seen in the past. I don't know if these things are going to happen for sure, but based on our research over the last decade, I think this is a likely scenario. Now, let's get into what it's going to look like at the state level for each of you guys in your states, because you're probably chomping at the bit and really wanting to know what's going on with this. Now, before we get into these states and what the laws are right now and how they're going to handle this decision, so weird. There's a person named Casey in here. I think Casey is actually like a lawyer. It's part of this whole Roe V Wade thing. Here it is here. Planned Parenthood versus Casey. I was born in 73 when this decision came down in January 22nd, 1973. I was born on March 29th, 1973. So this whole story has been close to my heart for much of my life, especially after my awakening. The last troops were actually pulled out of Vietnam on my birthday, March 29th, 1973, 88th day of the year. Now we're going to get into some of these dates because there are more 88s going on. In fact, the decision to overturn this happened exactly, well, not exactly, happened the eve of the 88th day after the 88th day of the year. So 88 and 88 days, which was June 24th, June 25th is the 88 and 88th day, so it was the eve of that day. So there's some new numbers. I don't want to call it numerology because it's really not numerology. It's number synchronicities that are very important that we're going to dig a little bit deeper into later in the show. So let's take a look at these states, state by state. Now, wow, Alabama, a near total ban on we're going to call it Bo Rorschin, just because I don't know how the algorithms feel about this. They're probably going to not let people really talk about this in any meaningful way that makes sense. If you're going along with the party lines, oh yeah, your video will go viral, it'll be seen by everybody. Well, we want this video to get out to as many people as possible, because this is all about common sense and thinking about this critically instead of getting mixed up in the emotion. So, Alabama, near a total ban on Bo Rorschin that predates Roe V Wade, but wasn't in effect till 1973, will go back into effect. So Alabama, standing up for the Lord. Alaska, the right to Bo Rorschin is protected. So this governor there, Dunleavy, says a renewed conversation on the issue. Now, what you're going to have too is you're going to have some conservative states tipping in favor of protecting life. You're going to see that now that they have the backing of the Supreme Court. So maybe this is what Mike Dunleavy will do. We will see. Arizona. So pro Roe V Wade law bans them except when the mother's life is endangered. Okay, so after 15 weeks, it's banned. To me, that's still too long. But at least it's something. Arkansas. It is illegal in Arkansas. It will go into effect immediately without further action required. Now, what is this? Near total ban signed in 2021. California, of course, we know where California stands. Colorado, we know where Colorado stands. Connecticut, we know where Connecticut stands. Pro Bo Rorschin. Delaware, same thing. Florida looks like after 15 weeks. So I'm a little bit shocked about that. But you do have a mix of Republican and Democrat in Florida. So I don't know, maybe that will change. I would like to see it change. Here's Georgia, law prohibiting them after 6 weeks was signed, but not in effect following legal challenges. So Georgia being a little bit more aggressive than some of the other states. Hawaii, of course, liberal. Idaho. Okay, so Idaho, it will make it illegal. That's good. That's great. Illinois is very liberal. It's protected. Indiana. So Indiana says the right to Bo Rorschin is neither protected nor banned. Okay. So they're just like neutral, which basically means it's protected. Iowa. Wow. Reversed an earlier court ruling that the state constitution guaranteed the right to Bo Rorschin. What does that mean? Gosh, the language here is so tricky. Reversed an earlier court ruling, Iowa Supreme Court reversed a court ruling that the state constitution guaranteed. Okay, so looks like Iowa's tipping in the favor of the child. Kansas. So voters get to decide on August 2nd in Kansas to change the state constitution to say there is no right to Bo Rorschin. So that's a good sign. Hopefully Kansas will vote correctly on that. Kentucky. Wow, a lot of states going to make it illegal. There's only going to be a few states left, a few very liberal states that are going to allow this to continue. Now, understand that this is a litmus test. you are actually going to see what people are really, really made of. Some of these very conservative people that you thought were so conservative that are governors, you're going to see what they're really made of based on how they react to this issue. You're going to be able to go back and look at their record and what they said in the past. And you might be shocked about how in the past they were like, oh, we need to overturn that. We need to protect the child. And then watch them as they do nothing about this decision. Kentucky. So same thing. Very conservative. Trigger law in place to make abortion illegal immediately after Roe's overturn. Kentucky also has a new 15-week ban on the books that was legally challenged. That's kind of contradictory, because if there's a 15-week ban, then how is it completely illegal? So that's a little bit confusing. Louisiana, same thing. Trigger law in place to make it illegal immediately after Roe's overturn. Okay. Maine, it's legal there. Maryland, legal. These are somewhat small states. Massachusetts, legal still, in opposition to the decision to overturn Roe V Wade. Michigan, a pre-Roe v. Wade law bans them, but a judge ruled in May the state government cannot enforce the law as a lawsuit Planned Parenthood filed against the state plays out. Okay, so they're in a battle right now. Minnesota, unfortunately, you can still get one there. Mississippi, they are going to ban them. So Missouri, again, wow, I was not expecting this, that most of the states are ready and willing and have these trigger laws in place to ban abortion. This is great news, because every child matters. We're going to see a lot of good things happening here. The right to an abortion is currently protected under the state constitution in Montana. Nebraska, they're like neutral. But the governor is saying that, Governor Pete is saying that he will push for the state legislature to pass a total ban when it's overturned. That's what he said he was going to do. We'll see what happens. Nevada, you can still get one in Nevada. New Hampshire, you can still get one in New Hampshire. New Jersey, you can still get one in New Jersey. New Mexico is playing neutral. New York, of course, you can still get one. North Carolina, this is weird. North Carolina says the right to one is not protected. Okay, so I guess in these cases it kind of defers maybe to the Supreme Court. I don't know. North Dakota, it's going to be illegal. Ohio, not protected. So I'm going to pin this because I'm not going to go through every single one of the states because it just keeps going and we could be here all day. So I'll pin this. So if you're interested in this, and then you guys can see for yourself where your particular state stands. Now, let's talk about Trump, because at first I thought I had this figured out. I was like, okay, I thought that Trump would be hailed as the savior by the right because of this, because he was the last president to tip the Supreme Court back towards the right, wasn't he? And that is what enabled the reversal of Roe v. Wade to happen. I thought that this was a stunt to strengthen the right on the side of Trump, to get him reelected, to reinstill confidence in him and give us all a dose of hopium and belief in the system again. I mean, what better way to do that, right? But I should have listened to my gut. Because just a few days ago, I was telling you that if he did get reelected, which I anticipate that he will, things would not go good for Christians anymore. Because the fangs would come out and we would see the other face of Trump. And apparently we're in the preliminary stages of that, because instead of him being happy for every soul that will now be saved, he said that this would be bad for his party, bad for the Republican Party. What? Now, if you're not shocked about this comment, simply ask yourself, what would Jesus do? Now, I know Trump isn't Jesus, he doesn't claim to be, but if you're following a man who's supposed to be representing Jesus, Jesus would never say this. You know what Jesus would say? He would say, if you harm one hair on the head of that child, there will be a millstone tied around your neck and you will be dropped in the ocean and sink to the bottom. So you can't stand on the fence with this. Now, they say he said this in private, but there are many comments that he made leading up to this that he's been saying to the people around him leading up to this. The decision, Trump has told friends and advisors, will anger suburban women, a group who helped tilt the 2020 presidential race to Beau Jivin, and will lead to backlash against Republicans in November midterm elections. His advisors had encouraged Trump to keep quiet about the issue until a ruling was issued, in part to ensure he was not accused of trying to influence the decision. Wow. Just wow. Now I'll let you read this as well, because it's on record many times that he did not believe this would be a good thing, even though he appointed a conservative judge. I just can't even believe this. The fangs are coming out. Now, over the years, we've done a lot of work on Roe v. Wade because it dovetailed very neatly over the Trade Center story, didn't it? Roe v. Wade was decided in the year the towers opened, 1973. But I never thought I would see the day that our federal government gave up its bloodlust for our children. Now, don't get me wrong, I think this is a good thing, but I wonder what the motive is. I wonder what the motive really is. It's been 49 years since America sanctioned abortion. That's 7 times 7 years. And that number resonates with me because some people believe that the pineal gland is fully developed in the child in the womb. And that at that point, at the 49 days, is when the child is filled with the spirit of life. 7 times 7 weeks. 7 times 7 days, 7 weeks. And some people believe there's a DMT release that signals the actual completion of the pineal gland and the entrance of the spirit into the child. Now, many of you remember the videos we did on the morning after pill and how they extended the use of the morning after pill after 7 weeks. And I believe that they did that so that they could ensure that they could take the soul with a pill in the womb after the soul was seated at 49 days. Now, this whole thing, this whole reversal of Roe v. Wade happened on the eve of 88 days after the 88th day of the year, which is today. And this is the day that iPetGoat 2 released in 2012, exactly 10 years ago. Look at this. June 24th, 2012, the 7-minute video that showed and disclosed so many things that had not happened yet. The last 10 years, this has just been revelation after revelation. Now, there was some confusion because I believed back during that time, because we were doing decodes at that time, we started decoding iPetGoat 2. It says June 24th here, but it actually released on the 88th day after the 88th day of the year. But for some reason, Wikipedia gets it wrong here. Because I remember, because we did videos on that. And so here you have iPetGoat 2. And you have to ask yourself, there was a child coddled up to its mother's womb in iPetGoat 2. and it looked dead. But then by the end of it, the child was spinning like a whirling dervish, sending up out of a mosque toward heaven. And you have to wonder, was that signifying this Supreme Court decision? I don't know. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the ruling. There's no need for fear. I know the media is trying to pump up the fear to get everybody afraid of what's the backlash is gonna be, blah blah blah. Now we saw how the media really just allowed the left to run rampant during all the riots and everything. So this is why some people are concerned and like, okay, if they were going to let them do that, then what's it going to look like for us now? And I just tell you, like I always tell you, there is no fear. Just make sure you protect yourself. Make sure you're ready to go in case someone comes at you or your family. And I don't think God would have a problem with that. Now, let's get into some of these other headlines. Now, I wanted to give you an update on the Lotus. We've been talking a lot about the Lotus, which also appears in iPad Go 2. So I was curious because I wanted to look up Trump and the Lotus to see if there were any other references to him and lotus flowers. The reason why is because Lotus also means Kamala. Kamala means lotus, which of course is the vice president. But also, many of you will remember that Trump gave the Pope a lotus statue, a little sculpture, and it was a gift. So I was wondering what that was all about. So I did a search on Lotus and Trump, and this popped up. Now, of course, this is liberal propaganda, right? It's divisive. They're calling him the liar of the United States, Lotus. But you have to ask yourself, is this have some kind of meaning? I don't know. Now, here's an update on popstick control. Let's take a closer look at this and see what's been going on. New popstick control bill. Now, remember, this all has to do with the red flag laws, which Trump also promoted and endorsed during his presidency. He said every single state should have a red flag law, which has taken tens of thousands of popsticks away from law-abiding citizens over the last 4 years that they've been enacted. You can look up the statistics yourself, state by state. Some states, 5,000, some states, 20,000 have been confiscated, and the list goes on and on and on. Many of those people will never get those popsticks back, even though they say there's a time where they investigate and they return them to them. Chances are that you are now going to go on some list if you've had your popstick taken away from you, and you'll be monitored for the rest of your life. And the next time someone files a red flag against you, they'll be very quick because you'll be in their database to run and go pick up your popsticks again. So, there is no Second Amendment. It's all smoke and mirrors to make you think, oh, I'll pick the lesser of two evils. Well, both are evil. It's the ones that you think are close to you need to watch out for because they're the ones that can pull the rope-a-dope on you, which is exactly what Thump did with the red flag laws. Let's get an update on what's going on here. Senate voted to advance bipartisan popstick legislation Tuesday with the hopes of passing it prior to the July 4th recess. All 50 members of the Democrat joined 14 Republicans in moving the legislation forward. So let's see what is going on here. It's the most sweeping popstick safety legislation passed by Congress in decades. Here are the chief negotiators, Chief Rhinos. Today we finalized bipartisan common sense legislation to protect America's children, keep our schools safe, reduce the threat of violence across our country. Oh, really? How about protect you and all of your tyranny so that you can, operate with full immunity and just do whatever you want to us? How about that? So I'm wondering if they threw us a bone with the Roe V Wade thing just so they can go back behind us and start disarming us. That's what I think is really happening here. So here they talk about the red flag laws. They can temporarily confiscate pop sticks from individuals deemed a threat to themselves or others. So similar laws already exist in 19 states, so now this is going to be across the board. Legislation also allows for implementation of these programs through mental health, drug and veterans courts. Republicans were involved in the negotiation push to make sure no one is flagged without the right to an in-person hearing, an unbiased adjudicator, the right to no opposing evidence, the right to present evidence, and the right to confront adverse witnesses. Now this, I guess, is good, even though I don't even like this whole concept to begin with, because you got a bunch of like rats running around watching other people and people just waiting on, oh, that was my chance. I didn't like that guy having that next door to me. Now I can turn him in. I'll just be watching him, wait for him to mess up. And as soon as he has a bad day and gets drunk or something, I'm going to turn him in. There's literally people out there that are just waiting for this. Some of you have been through this. Now, if you've been through this, you've had your pop stick taken away from you because of this, the red flag law, please let us know in the chat. It probably happens more than you think. Now, this is good because before the original red flag laws, you didn't even get to face your accuser. You didn't get to see the evidence. You just had people come at dark of night, knock on your door, and storm your house and take your pop sticks. Under this bill, every state will be able to use significant new federal dollars to be able to expand their programs to try to stop dangerous people. So now a lot more tax dollars are going to be spent on this. Okay. Now, a simple reason why they could take your pop stick, you could say something online. Let's say someone hacks your account and they start typing stuff in about what they're going to do. Well, that would be a perfect reason for them to come take your pop sticks. So mostly this is about that. It says also under new legislation, anyone convicted of domestic violence against a former or current dating partner would be banned from purchasing a weapon. What? Are you kidding me? Now, on its face, this sounds like a great thing, right? But here's the thing. How many times do people call the cops on the other person and he goes to jail and he didn't do anything wrong? Almost happened to me once. Because they don't ask questions. They just start arresting people. Okay? And so, this is not good, you guys. Because people fight when they're in marriages sometimes. Some of them go on to have full lifelong, they've learned their lesson. Others don't. But rarely does that involve someone pulling out a pop stick and going too far. I mean, it can, but I just don't think this is common sense legislation. This is extreme because it's so easy. And so many people, so many Americans have domestic violence rap sheets. Let's see. Let's try to look that up. Let me check in with you guys real quick. Unbelievable. How many Americans, what search should we do? How many Americans have been, domestic violence charges? Let's look that up. Cases. That's what we're looking for. Okay. Wow. 10 million people a year. So you guys, what is that? 10 million, that would be 3%. So right off the bat, 3% of people can't own a pop stick. Well, it affects 10 million people here. It doesn't say 10 million actually cases of domestic. Let's take a look here. 10 million, yeah. So that's 10 million cases. So that's 10 million people that lose their pop sticks. So now understand that this is just the beginning. They're going to start adding to this. So first, it's just domestic violence people. Next, it's going to be people on medications who have deemed to have been anxious or depressed. Like half of people are on some kind of antidepressant. Let's keep reading here. Republican negotiators pushed for a strict definition of who would qualify as a dating partner and the length of the time for which they'd be unable to purchase a pop stick. Law also would not apply retroactively, meaning that someone would have to be convicted of domestic violence after the law went into effect. Okay, well, that's good, I guess. Wow. Wonder if it has anything in here about being under kind of medical expansion of background checks. Okay, so this is not good, you guys. Now, I don't own a pop stick, but I've always been a proponent of the rights of others who do. Always stood behind them. Because what people don't understand is once you start giving up the rights like this, then it's just a landslide. And it has nothing to do with wanting to overthrow, the GOV. Has nothing to really do with that. It has to do with a right that is being taken away. And then the next right after that to be taken away, and the one after that, and the one after that. So you have to stand up for the rights that you have now, regardless of whether or not you're a violent person or whether or not you really believe that you're going to have to defend yourself against your government one day. That has really not a lot to do with it. It has to do with your rights. And they're trying to take this right away. Okay. Mental health services. Now notice in here, they don't say anything about how the child would get into the mindset to want to do anything like this, or why a person would. They don't talk about that. They don't talk about the programming. They don't talk about the violent movies and TV that Hollywood is exposing us to. They act as if it doesn't exist, as though this violence is just happening in a bubble. It's happening for no reason. Now, in this background check, I wonder, let's do a page search on here. Find. We're going to look for depression. No. Medical. No. Well, I can imagine that psychological issues will come into play here. Psych. At some point. Maybe not now, but they will at some point. And they'll just keep taking blocks, demographic blocks of people off the chessboard, one by one as the years go by, and they'll say it's common sense, and they go, oh, okay, now we need to go after these people. Now we need to go, and by the time it's all said and done, like 5% of the people are going to be eligible to have a pop stick. Now, look at this next story. Dark day. Democrats respond to Supreme Court striking down New York pop stick law. Now, this law is separate from the ones we just talked about, because this one is about New York trying to make pop stick owners show a good reason why they want to conceal carry. So in other words, you got to give a reason now. Oh, well, it's not good enough just to exercise my right. You have to actually show a reason, like you're a private detective or something. And so fortunately, the Supreme Court struck that down for New York. But look at this. Here's what I notice about this. Here you have Bo jiving under a syringe umbrella in the middle of summer. I don't know if it was raining that day, but I don't ever remember people on the world stage using umbrellas as a sunshade. This is kind of a new phenomenon, isn't it? If in fact it is sunny. But this is all feral worship. Feral being the tip of the umbrella. So, I think that was about it. Oh, we got one more thing for you guys today. I wanted to switch gears for a bit and do a follow-up on the Syrinx reads. This is actually very important. What are the Syrinx reads? Well, it's understood by some biblical scholars that the Red Sea wasn't the Red Sea at all. That it was the Reed Sea. Now, I don't know if I agree with this, but this Sea of Reeds is what some biblical scholars say that the translation actually says. A sea of hollow needles. We all remember the myth from the ancient Rome. The Pan's pipes came from a sea of reeds that were turned, that Artemis nymph had been turned into. He cut them off and made his panpipes. Now here's the new information. Because darts, ancient Roman darts, were made out of hollow reeds. So, now we're starting to see what this is all about. Fiery darts, syringes are now darts and arrows. Let's read this. It says, dart, chetz, an arrow, as elsewhere in Job, masa, an arrow, sherbet, a rod or staff. In 2 Chronicles, it's called shalak, any missile weapon. In Job, tutak, or bludgeon. And it goes on and on. It's an instrument of war similar to an arrow or a light spear. It is thought that the Hebrews were in the habit of discharging darts from the bow while on fire. These fiery darts were made of the shrub rotham, or Spanish broom, which grows abundantly in the Arabian desert. It is probably in reference to this fact that arrows are sometimes compared to lightnings. Fiery darts among the Romans, according to Ammianus Marcellinus, consisted of a hollow reed, to the lower part of which, under the point or barb, was fastened a round receptacle made of iron for combustible materials, so that such an arrow had the form of a distaff or a distaff. This was filled with burning naphtha. I wonder what that is. I wonder if it's like napalm. And when the arrow or dart was shot from the slack bow, for discharge from a tight bow, the fire went out. It struck the enemy's ranks and remained fixed, the flame consuming whatever it met with. Water poured on it increased its violence, and there were no other means to extinguish it but by throwing earth upon it. Similar darts or arrows, which were twined round with tar and pitch and set fire to, are described by Livy as having been made use of by the inhabitants of the city Saguntum when besieged by the Romans. Now, the implications of this are huge, because there were also fiery darts. Fiery darts. Fiery serpents sent at God's people, the Israelites, as they stood under the caduceus, the bronze serpent wrapped around a pole. So now we have more connections to what is happening to all of us, or what just happened to us under the caduceus of Apollo, under the Hippocratic oath to Apollo, struck with fiery hollow needles, forcing them to pray to the bronze serpent, when we should be praying to Jesus on the cross for healing. You can't make this up, you guys. So, that's what I had for you guys today. Let's go to the chat, see what's up with you guys. Now, I do intend on taking a few days off here and there, and probably have re-uploads for you guys, very important ones. Some re-uploads on Solomon, on eclipses and things like that. I've already got them ready to go. So tune in. They'll be still at the same times, but sometimes you'll see that some of them are re-uploads that are scheduled, and oftentimes I'll be in the chat with you, but I too need a break kind of from all of this and the research and all of that, hence the re-uploads. Now, I promise not to do any recent re-uploads. These will be re-uploads most of you haven't seen. 2020 and before. 2020 was a huge year because there was a lot of disclosure. This is when we got 2020 vision, didn't we? We started to see things very, very clearly. And so just letting you know what's on tap over the next several weeks. So you might see 2 or 3 re-uploads in a row. Just don't be concerned. It's just me taking a little breather, because you guys, I work on this stuff 70 hours a week or more. I pretty much never put it down. I eat, live, sleep, and drink this. This is what I do pretty much even on the weekends, as you see what I'm doing right now. So it's just a heads up in terms of the format of the channel, just for the next 30 days or so. And then we'll get right back into some of these heavier decodes and break these things down for you. Yes, pray for peace. Fiery darts of the enemy. Casey, do you know where any good fishing is in New England, Arkansas? Wait, Northeast Arkansas. Do I ever fly fish? Northeast Arkansas. Northeast. Don't really. That would be near the Mississippi River. I don't know a lot going on over there. But as you get up further up into the mountains, White River is great. I have a fly fishing rod, but I have not pulled it out in a while. I need some fly fishing training. I'm not that good at it. I don't know what to use. I probably at some point will get some kind of a guide, and I'll bring what I have and have them, give me some flies and show me exactly what to do. And then I'm sure I'll get into it. Problem with fly fishing is you need a specific, it's kind of limited because you have to have certain waters. You have to have clearance around you. You can't have a bunch of trees, and much of the shoreline, a lot of these rivers, especially here in Arkansas, are very steep. There's no room to flip a fly pole out there. And I like to kind of be in the trees and the shade. I don't like to be, out in the open sun with a fly pole in a perfect spot, because it's probably going to be too crowded anyway. So those are my feelings on fly fishing. But thanks for that question. Will I label the title as a re-upload? Probably not. Just because the algorithms don't like that. But, tune in. And if it's something you're not interested or you've already seen, just click off of it. So, yeah. All right. Let's keep looking at the chat here. All right. Final countdown for the Lord's return. Yes, Christine. There's lots of reasons to be encouraged. I agree with you. These are exciting times because it means that we're close to the end of all this. And it's exciting to know that God's protecting us, right? I feel protected. I don't know about you guys, but God has basically guided my life to the point of safety in all these things. When you listen to him, he will guide you in your life. So, all right. Is there a group chat outside of this? Not really. We do have the group on Facebook, and some people, engage in conversations over there. Naphtha is Zippo fluid, says John. Thank you. Now, if you haven't already, please thumbs up this video. Of course, it helps the video get distributed. Sometimes I know you guys forget. Don't listen to the negative comments. Thanks for the advice. Pray for one another. Repair it or junk it. Thanks. Welcome to the channel. New to the channel. All right. Okay. All right, you guys. Well, I'll let you enjoy the rest of your day of rest. Some people believe that Saturday is the day of rest. I tend to agree with that. I know there's other calendars out there as well that say that there's different days of the week as the day of rest. So whatever calendar you follow, you always need the day of the week to rest. One day I wouldn't consider the day of rest as Sunday under the sun god, because that was basically Rome hijacking the day of rest. But if that's your day of rest too, God will work with you and just keep disclosing things to you. I'm not here to judge anybody because we're all on our own journey, right? I love each and every one of you guys, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Take care and be safe.